We're here in the matter of the United States of America versus...
Following is a collect call from a person presumed nice until proven naughty.
Y'all, Santa Claus is locked up, and I'm gonna get him out. My name's Richie Buck. I'm an amateur podcaster and investigator. I'm an Investipodster. I came up with that. If you like true crime, feelings of the holidays, and I ain't just talking about Christmas, and satire, well, Santa May Be a Criminal just might be for you. Some of your favorite true crime podcasters have joined in to spin this yarn.
I'm Chet.
If the mitten ain't a fitting.
Can you tell who's who?
Stop acting like
And
you're...
is Santa a criminal? Let's find out together.
Hunt down Santa.
Santa May Be a Criminal. Listen and subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
Got run over by a reindeer.
Ho, ho, ho.
So, as the resident conspiracy lunatic of the Sirens podcast, I've been asked by Raven to share a little bit of my madness with you all. The topics that I plan on bringing to you in this segment fall strictly under myth and legend and will be presented as such, so as to further promote the level-headed and logical approach championed by Raven. The information I will be providing to you in this segment is merely that. Information. I am not a stoic believer in the creatures and shadows I will be discussing, but rather a fascinated skeptic. Welcome to Cryptids Unscripted.
Okay. Hi, everyone out there. Welcome again to another episode of the Sirens podcast. Today we're doing another Cryptids Unscripted. We have in the studio with us today, of course, me, Raven Rollins, and, well, it wouldn't be the show without Simon Vaughn, since he's the host of this segment. We also have Jean Grey and a special guest from Santa May Be a Criminal. It's Jason! Woo!
Hello.
Woo!
Happy holidays.
So we're going to talk about Mothman today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Mothman.
Well, let's do it.
First of all, a couple of things.
Okay.
Previously, we discussed skinwalkers on the show.
We did.
Skinwalkers and Mothman complete kind of what's known, kind of a subculture triumvirate in cryptozoological circles. There are three. There's a big three when it comes to cryptids, and you'll find a lot of other cryptids tend to get lumped in with them. But this is a modern thing that you see, and when I'm saying that when I say it's a big three, it's more of a big three in the public zeitgeist and less actually in any form of anthropological or cryptozoological research.
Okay.
Those big three include, of course, any form of shape changer.
Right.
Okay. Mothman. And Bigfoot.
Oh, okay.
There's a reason for this, too. Those basically constitute in that order, the magical, the potentially extra-dimensional, and then the just strange big honkin' animal.
Okay.
And those are the three. That's the animal, vegetable, mineral of looking into cryptids. Okay, is you deal with something that is supernatural versus paranormal versus that's a big damn raccoon.
Okay.
That's cryptids in a nutshell. And today we're hitting number 2 on that list. One of the most popular cryptids of all time, especially in American cryptid subculture, the Mothman.
The Mothman.
So, before we get into this, though, I would personally like, because this is cool. There's actually people here.
There's people here. It's not just me this time.
I would like to know what do you all know in your own ways? What is the Mothman to you?
Oh.
There was a movie?
There is
was
always
a
a
movie.
test.
There was a movie. Jason, what do you know about the Mothman?
Yeah, fire away, guest.
I did see the movie, the Mothman Prophecies. I know that was based on a book, right?
Yes.
What I know is it was like a 6-foot-ish or more, 2 red eyes, kind of like Rudolph's nose.
Yes.
Self-plug.
Actually, yes.
And that it's sort of a creature that arrives around like a time where there is going to be a tragedy, like a harbinger of doom.
Oh, you know more than I do.
I didn't know anything.
I think that's
I thought
right.
he was
Is
just
that
there
right?
to warn people.
No, that's an excellent thing to bring up, because yes, the harbinger aspect of the Mothman is one of the reasons that it has persisted in the cryptid lexicon here for so long.
Wow.
And also that really awful movie with Richard Gere is the other reason that it got popular.
I liked
again.
that movie, okay?
Look, that movie is nowhere near as weird as the actual accounts of the Mothman, okay?
The mind control aspect is what did it for me.
Mind control.
that
Was
is-
there
Oh,
in
mind
the
control
movie?
thing? Yeah.
It's in the movie, and that is
When
a
they're
thing
like,
that was literally invented in the movie and
Okay,
has
great.
nothing to do
Nothing
with the
to do
book.
with this.
I'm
See,
not
that's
gonna-
why we're here today.
No,
Yeah,
learn.
yeah.
the director of that movie himself has stated over and over and over again, I just made a movie off of a creepy situation, and I didn't realize that people really have a lot of love for this thing in a weird way.
And I'm not gonna lie to you. I mostly just watched that movie to put myself to sleep at night.
Well,
so
the
I don't really pay heavily attention to it.
The two best parts of that movie are the opening scene where they vaguely show the Mothman
Yes.
attacking him and his wife.
I do remember that.
And then the end of the movie when he goes out to the TNT plant
Right.
and has a freak out, has a flip out paranormal moment where everything goes black and white and really screws with him. Those are the best parts of the movie that are probably the closest linked to the actual Mothman mythos.
Okay.
The rest of the movie is just oddly trying to not look like you're making fun of the people of West Virginia.
Okay.
So Hollywood being Hollywood.
Kind of, yeah. At least they tried. But, the truth of the matter is, people in Point Pleasant are some of the least worst people in America.
I would like
they're
to-
pretty great,
I think
actually.
I'd like to visit Point Pleasant. That
Absolutely. Oh, no,
like a
there's
cool place.
there's another reason for that you should.
That sounds cool.
Give me a sec. Let me tuck my
Adjusting.
my unruly hair out of my face here. So, first and foremost, we talked about skinwalkers last time. We talked about one of the more interesting things when you told me to start up this show and everything. One of the things that I adore about the supernatural and the paranormal is, of course, myths, legends, lore, how old stories are, and can any modern reportings of a cryptid be linked to older stories and anthropological research.
Right.
That's the most fascinating thing.
Right.
To get that well out of the way as far as being a conspiracy nut goes, my personal favorite conspiracy is the ancient life conspiracy. I personally love the concept of, a lot of people call it the Atlantean idea, but it's just the idea that other sentient beings have been on this planet longer than humanity.
All right.
That's my personal favorite. So that's why it's fun to link all these things in the past.
Yeah.
So here's the deal with
Here's-
Mothman.
Okay. We're getting into it. Here we go.
It's one of the reasons why when you said, I want to do Mothman and everything, okay?
I think it's interesting.
Oh, no. It's just, there's a reason I made the face that I made. There is one singular problem with the Mothman mythos, and we're going to get this out of the way right now. The Mothman is literally every myth.
Oh.
It's every
Myth?
spooky myth.
Are you referring
in
to
any
how
culture.
dragon refers
wrapped
to
up
a lot
into
of the
one
great predators
piece?
of our ancient primates?
No, I'm referring to going back to just about every proto-culture in humanity has a mythological creature with a blankish face that is lumbering, lurching, has something wrong with its head, and can probably fly.
Oof.
Okay? There's a reason that humans are scared of an image of a dead-eyed thing with an open mouth or a faceless being
Ew.
that something is glowing. Yeah, see, you just got the heebie-jeebies
that's
by me
one of
just
my-
basically describing it.
Yeah, that's one of my
That's
things.
one of yours and most of humanity's things. Okay? Barring tremendous psychological issues that get people on the other part of your podcast.
Right.
So, Mothman, first and foremost, the creature that was originally seen back in the day, wasn't even called Mothman.
Okay.
The moth part of it literally came around from... So, the term Mothman wasn't even coined by the people of Point Pleasant at all.
Well, where did it come from?
A newspaper writer, a journalist.
What?
From I'll have to double check, but I cannot remember. He wasn't. He was either from Ohio or he was from West Virginia.
That checks out because, as we've seen, journalists and newspapers are really good at naming things. Like serial killers, UFOs, whatever they think.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's also a huge part of the Mothman legacy in the first place. Speaking of which, most of the information that I've drawn from today, besides basic information on the internet, pop culture icons and other things, come from a variety of sources, including the movie Mothman Legacy, which is a
I didn't get to watch
it's
that.
Okay. It's a documentary that was made by the people who it's made with the people who run the Mothman Museum in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, who talk about all of the major sightings and everything else like that. It's a really good documentary. It kind of presents the information the way that we like to. In the idea of be skeptical or be believable, we're just going to talk about the weird stuff.
Okay.
Is that available somewhere? Like, is it like
on
Netflix
Prime?
Or...
It's on Amazon Prime.
It's on Amazon Prime.
He gave me homework, and I did not do it.
I'll also be pulling from a book called Monsters of West Virginia. Monsters of West Virginia by Miss Rosemary Ellen Guiley. Miss Guiley has appeared on numerous cryptid, paranormal, and supernatural documentaries and everything. She is quite the researcher when it comes to supernatural things. She's also really fun to read because she approaches all of this from the. She's definitely a Mulder. She's not a Scully.
Okay.
She approaches this from a perspective of genuinely believing in a higher level of paranormal than most people do.
Okay.
Ms. Guiley is absolutely an extra-dimensionalist. She believes in rifts in reality that allow cryptids to come walking through.
Okay.
Which is something that will come up in every one of these things that we ever talk about, just to let you know.
Yeah,
okay?
I figured.
Can I ask a quick question?
Fire away.
So you said that the term Mothman was coined by a journalist. How soon after the event did that occur? Was this
that? Give me a.
Or you might get to that, and then I apologize if I.
No, it's okay. This is actually a great time to bring that up.
Probably after at least a couple of incidents, I would think.
It was after about a couple of. I want to say it was about a week or so. I don't have the exact dates on that when it happened.
Okay.
But it was a reporter, and it was a reporter. It looks like. Yeah, it actually was an anonymous editor. It's not actually a person who could be found. Somebody just started calling it the Mothman, and it caught on. Because here's the thing. To get into this, we need to get into, once again, the history.
Okay.
West Virginia, first and foremost.
West Virginia, my mama.
But
go.
Anywho, West Virginia, every country has their place, their thing, their dark spot that has weird things and a higher than normal level of paranormal activity. America has an entire state.
Oh.
And that is West Virginia. West Virginia is one of the absolute hot spots of paranormal and cryptid activity.
I want to ask Jason, where are you from, Jason?
I'm in Georgia.
You're in Georgia?
I was born in Alabama, but I live in Georgia.
Okay.
Skunk Cave territory.
Okay, so we're both kind of out of our comfort zones here with West Virginia. Okay.
Well, here's the thing. West Virginia is a fascinating state, to the point, going back yet again, there is no old myth in America that does not have something to do with Native Americans.
Right.
By the way. Mm-hmm. West Virginia was another place where local tribes largely considered to be off limits.
Okay.
It was considered, in so many terms, spooky.
Yeah.
It was in some cultures it was sacred. Other places it was forbidden. It was not okay.
Okay.
The only thing that was that they would do there was largely hunt, but there weren't a lot of tribal communities there.
We ran into that with the skinwalkers as well.
Yes. Well, because nobody wanted to live in Oklahoma. Even the people who lived here first. Okay, nobody wanted to live here. But so West Virginia has been a hotspot of paranormal activity going as far back as verbal tradition in Native American history.
Okay.
To the point of we've got some of the oldest ones in West Virginia. We've got fireballs in the sky. We've got apparitions. We've got strange wailings. And most importantly, giant creatures.
Okay. Giant creatures.
Now, I'm going to say a word that's going to make everybody in this room probably giggle.
No, no.
But when you look into cryptid stuff, you got to get used to goofy names. Okay. I know you've all heard of Bigfoot. Mm-hmm. Have any of you ever heard of Big Hoot?
Okay, so I have not heard of Big Hoot. However, I have heard of Mothman described as a giant owl man.
There's a reason why.
Okay.
Because shortly before the Mothman sightings, and then also hundreds of years before the Mothman sightings, for hundreds of years leading up to the Mothman sightings, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, most of the northern states there in the northern Appalachian areas have been reporting gigantic birds for well over 600 years.
So like the Thunderbird.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thunderbirds.
I was about to say, like, I think New Mexico has a Thunderbird.
Yeah.
But also giant flying reptiles, potential living dinosaurs. Pennsylvania is famous for a pterodactyl, reportedly being found in the late 1800s post the Civil War. Yeah.
That's Gene's cup of tea.
But the other issue is, going before this and around the exact same time, there were notable observations of what was called a large birdman.
Okay.
In Ohio and Pennsylvania. Okay. West Virginia had reported giant birdmen for years.
Ooh.
The natives reported giant birdmen.
And we're like,
for years.
This is like way, way back in time.
Way the hell back. Okay. Just way back. This is a thing. A giant winged humanoid, or at least man-sized bird abomination, have been noticed in the West Virginia area and most of the Ohio River Basin for the last 400 to 500 years.
Wow.
That's a long time. Mm-hmm. That's way longer than
crazy.
The 60s where we're,
Now, this is where things get fun. Have any of you ever seen a really good picture of a giant crane?
They look, from afar, the way that they fly, they can be mistaken for a pterodactyl or a type of
It's not even just that. Actually, the tail was shown to be misread fossil.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Pterodactyls do not actually possess giant tails.
I guess that would make sense. They wouldn't necessarily need
now,
much
the smaller feathered ones did.
Right, okay.
But anyway, the greater adjutant crane.
Okay.
It's a stork, actually, not a crane. My apologies, because storks are bigger than cranes.
Those are the ones that deliver babies.
No, these are the ones that eat your
babies.
children. This is a creature.
Crane people are going to be mad.
Good Lord have mercy.
So this is
That's
a creature.
Proof that dinosaurs walk among.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that before. I've seen that. You see that?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of bright. Yeah. Sorry.
I can see it.
So this is a creature that was actually several.
Wait, how big is that one?
Oh, those things right there can get up
they're
to
like tall as me, right?
5'6".
Okay,
Wow.
that's precisely tall as me.
They usually peter out at about 4'9".
Oh, wow.
But their wingspan is 8 to 9 feet wide.
Holy
Boop.
Wow.
The Mothman is most notoriously reported as being roughly 7 foot tall humanoid with a 10-foot wingspan.
That's huge.
It's very big, is the idea here.
That is a big
there are several. Now, the fun thing about it, though, is that you go over the different sightings of the Mothman, and this is one of the biggest discrepancies in the depiction of the Mothman as to whether or not it has a head.
Oh, okay.
Sorry?
I'm not kidding. This is a big discrepancy. Even the statue in Point Pleasant that's near the Mothman Museum, the giant metal abomination that has a really nice butt. Listen, man, sculptors are weird because when you're shaping that clay, there's only so many ways that you can cup that hand. Okay?
This is what people need to hear about.
Well, hey, listen.
Yes, this is what the listeners are here for.
You want to get people into cryptids, you make them thick as hell. That's how you do it, okay?
Sex sells.
It absolutely.
Sex sells.
But here's the thing. There are numerous accounts of the Mothman having a head and not having a head.
That's so strange.
It is incredibly strange when you hear it like that. Now, let's talk about birds for just a second.
Burbs.
How many birds tuck their head in?
All.
I didn't even
At
think
least
about that.
all of them.
Yeah, at least all of them.
At least.
Whenever a bird is resting or sitting or standing or what have you, especially here in Oklahoma, we have herons that are like itty-bitty baby cranes.
Well, owls do that, too.
Some of them tuck
Owls
behind
do
them.
that a lot.
Yeah.
Big Hoot, as I was referring to it, is another old myth in the Americas. Big hoots are basically, that's the category for gigantic birds in cryptozoological research.
Okay. Just big hoots?
Big
All
hoots
of them are big hoots?
Well, big hoots also include bird men.
Oh, okay.
And there was a pervasive myth of a giant owl man running through Ohio and Pennsylvania.
Well, and as I was thinking, like, as you were saying that, I was thinking, like, it makes sense that this goes way, way, way back, because I think we talked about this before this recording, but, like, Egyptian gods, stuff like that.
Shamanism, animism, and the general pervasive belief of the spirit are a major part of all human proto-cultures.
Sure.
This goes all the way back to our oldest myths and legends that we have. One of the oldest known demons in human mythology from the Rime of Gilgamesh is Humbaba. Humbaba is the image that you see in The Exorcist used for Pazuzu.
Oh, right.
It is the primate-shaped face with the wings.
Right.
Grayish, stony body.
Yeah.
Pazuzu. Okay? Humbaba. The Mothman.
Yeah.
This is a myth that exists in some of the oldest cultures. The Mothman has been likened to Garuda in the Ramayana in Hindu mythology.
Okay.
Garuda being the friend / mount of Shiva.
Right.
It takes on the form of either a gigantic bird, and he has been depicted as a greater adjutant stork before, or an eagle.
Okay.
So, now that we've gotten that out of the way, okay, just the basic, like, it's all weird, yo.
It's all weird.
It's going to get weirder. Let's talk about some of the major points. The main points of the Mothman. The weirdest thing about this, it's very similar to the historical accounts of piracy and everything. It actually didn't happen very long.
Oh, okay.
It's not a long thing. Okay? The original major parts of these, it was basically less than a year.
Really?
From a period of from 1966
and now
to
we're talking about the actual
We're
West
talking about
Virginia
the actual
one.
original major things that would come to name this creature Mothman.
Okay.
Sorry, bad transition on my part. But
from what years?
It's technically only 1 year and 1 month.
What?
From November 15th, 1966 to December, to the Silver Bridge collapse.
Well, I guess
Which was was that the 15th or the 16th? I think it was the 16th.
November 15th and November 20th. But the Silver Bridge disaster was December 15th.
Oh, okay.
1967.
Okay.
There's so much on this because just like the UFO explosion of the 50s and 60s,
right,
the Mothman is an absolute bonkers situation that blew up in popularity. Then a lot of people died and everybody stopped talking about it until the 70s again. The dates that would come up with the Mothman, or the dates of the events that would basically be tied to what we know of the Mothman.
It's all within that year.
It's all within that 1 year.
Okay. So there's really, I mean, you can just start and, like, I know that with the true crime stuff, I'm usually like, give me the exact date.
Okay.
And you don't have to.
Okay.
We know that it's within
as long
that
as
year.
we're on the same page, because I was about to tell you there is no way that I can do this and keep this in a timely manner because of the sheer amount.
I think it's just it's important in true crime, but you know.
Oh no, in true crime,
this,
absolutely. In public hysteria tied to a boogin or some crazy thing in the middle of nowhere, no.
So we're gonna we've narrowed it down. And
we're gonna start. We're gonna start with the first, the most important one. That is largely considered the most valid sighting, okay?
Now, there is one, and it might be this one, the only one that I've actually heard of. Is this the couple in the car?
Yes.
Okay. This is the
first.
Only
this
one
is
I've heard
considered
of.
the first legitimate sighting.
Okay.
All of this, by the way, centers around a facility that is outside of the city of Point Pleasant called the West Virginia Ordnance Works. It was an abandoned and retired munitions plant for the government in World War II. Yeah,
I think the Mothman is influencing this.
I think this is what's happening.
Well,
right now.
I mean, he is known to be able to mess with radio waves.
Really?
He doesn't want us talking about him.
Yes. That is a thing.
Are we summoning the Mothman right now?
We're doing it. We're doing it right now.
If you believe in the Mothman,
You say
the
Mothman five times.
No,
in
that's
the mirror.
that's Candyman.
Oh.
I thought that was Bloody Mary. This is why you're
it's
here.
the same story.
Simon.
So, all right. So we're going to talk about what is considered to be the most rational and legitimate finding.
Okay.
It all starts with the West Virginia Ordnance Works, which is outside the city of Point Pleasant. It is an abandoned munitions dump and factory for World War II.
Okay.
It was abandoned shortly thereafter in the late 40s, early 50s. It was also known, this is another part of the mythos, it was known as a place that polluted the ever-loving crap out of the surrounding groundwater and ground, because to make TNT, it's known as the TNT plant by anybody who lives there. To make any form of explosive ordnance, it uses some pretty dangerous chemicals.
Yeah.
Nitric acid being one of the least damaging ones.
Okay.
Our most important people here are two couples, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
There were 4 people in the car.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, I had only heard of the two.
The two who, because they're the ones who were mostly interviewed and were willing to be public about this. Because don't forget, this is the 60s in Appalachia, in a tiny town.
Yeah.
That meant one of two things. Either the devil had possession of you,
Right,
or you were drunk, or you were goofy on the reefer cigarettes.
Yeah.
That's what it meant if you said something like this. Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallet.
Okay.
These are the 4 people who were involved in the original sighting. They were out for the evening, driving around the mountains like you do when you live in the mountains.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, it was very popular back in the backwoods days, and most of us from backwoods communities ourselves can relate to this.
Mm-hmm.
People would largely go out to the abandoned TNT plant to make out.
Yeah.
Right.
That checks out.
Okay.
Dynamite.
Yeah. Aha! But the other thing that people will do is go screw with people who are trying to get it on.
Oh, well.
These 4 talked about doing something that was pretty regularly called chasing Parkers. In other words, you'd go out there and holler at people and heckle at them and then chase them away and everything. Standard redneck behavior.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it hurts.
Before
it hurts,
technology.
doesn't it? Yeah, it hurts to relate, because I read that passage and was like, oh. Yeah.
Small towns.
Small towns.
What can you do?
So the thing is, the 2 couples arrived at the plant, and as they were going through it, they went through one of the main gates because people would go hide out by what's called the igloos. The igloos were giant storage domes where they would store massive amounts of TNT, other explosive ordnance, chemicals, things like that, and they're still standing to this day.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Upon turning around one of the igloos, they saw, and there was no beating around the bush with this report, they saw what appeared to be a 7-foot-tall winged gray humanoid that was of a thin but muscular build with large hands and red eyes which appeared to sprout from the creature's shoulders as if it had no definable head.
Okay, so that was something I was going to ask you, number 1. Mm-hmm. I have heard of it described 2 different ways. One, it has just wings. And then the other is that it has wings and also human arms.
Yes.
Okay, so both of those are correct.
For philosophical matters referring to human discrepancies in reporting, refer to the Salem witch trials.
Yeah. And so, but these 4 people described
it
exact
as
thing.
that.
Okay.
They described it as that, with large wings that later on, it was Linda Scarberry, is the only one who would addend the appearance. She would say that upon later thinking, it wasn't that it had a grayish body, that it had grayish wings, that its body was kind of flesh-colored.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Okay.
But that the wings were ashy. They did not describe it as insect-like.
Okay, but is it like skin-like? Like you would think of a bat?
Leathery.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because the other weird thing is, this is why it's so hard to actually put down a legitimate image of the Mothman. One of the biggest details, and this happens with every report of the Mothman. Nobody ever reported hearing the Mothman flap its wings.
Weird.
No one has ever
that's strange.
reported even feeling wind from it.
Silent, like an owl.
Exactly.
Bum, bum, bum.
Or
Silent.
large. If you've ever been around a large bird of prey, whenever they are diving, or if you see one, you will not hear them. Especially if they're a nocturnal hunter like owls.
Yeah.
They are soft gliders.
Well,
You
that's
cannot
creepy.
hear them descending.
I watched a strange video where it compared the flying of a pigeon, a hawk, and an owl, and you literally could with really high tech
Yeah.
audio
whatever.
recording devices, and you could not hear the owl at all.
Diving birds especially, the way just the aerodynamics of their wings when they go into an actual dive and a glide, it creates little to no drag.
Wow.
So they just smoothly and quietly just glide through the air, and you can't really hear them.
Interesting. Okay.
It doesn't create that nice little sonic bubble of friction around them the same way that a hard thing moving through air does,
Yeah.
because their feathers largely diffuse the air and it disrupts that bubble.
Okay.
If it has feathers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So their first description of the Mothman had it without a definable head. They described that its eyes were roughly 2 to 3 inches wide.
Whoa.
Like I said, which
Wow.
That's pretty big.
yeah, about this.
Jeez.
So 2 to 3 inches wide.
Okay, that's kind of terrifying.
It is, especially when there's not a head and there appears to be 2 glowing things coming from its shoulders. Now, when they saw it, this is the interesting part too. They claimed to see it struggling. It was stuck on something. It had a wing caught in a guide wire that was attached to one of the buildings,
Really?
which happens to birds a lot.
Yeah.
Birds get
Interesting.
thrown off by guide wires attached to towers, poles, other things like that, and unless it's a really long one that is vibrating in the wind, birds typically will just run into them.
Yeah.
This one got its wing caught, is what they said. They claimed to see it struggling to free one of its wings caught in a guide wire. The couples were sent into an immediate panic because, this is where a lot of the ideas of, it actually has psychic crazy powers came from. They were just immediately mesmerized by this thing and were intensely terrified. Question for the audience. If you turned a corner and saw a 7-foot-tall, angry gray bird man going fuck with its wing, would your first reaction be to question the validity of reality or shit your pants and run the other way?
Probably the second.
I want to say the former, but we all know.
Oh, yeah, we all know. Round the corner, nope, and you nope out of there. That's what happens. So they immediately were sent into a panic, and before they could turn the car around, though, they did witness the creature free itself, then stumble towards the plant's generator facility, which is identifiable. You can look up you can see the generator facility if you go there even still today. Now this is where it gets important. One of the key details of this description: walking with a shuffling gait.
Shuffling, not picking
not
up its
picking.
legs?
Yes.
Okay.
What
The
animal
number
does
one way that
that?
people describe this, when the other people who saw it, well, you're actually not wrong.
Oh.
A lot of people, when they describe a lot of the other sightings of the Mothman, this is one of the few unifying factors of the Mothman sightings. It walked as if its legs were not its primary forms
Right.
of movement.
I mean, yeah.
The way a pteranodon might have walked.
The way that a penguin walks, the way that an owl walks,
Yeah,
which,
yeah,
incidentally,
yeah.
have you ever seen what an owl looks like
Or
when
a
its legs
bald
are extended?
eagle, even.
Yeah, it's a little
They
weird.
just-
Have you ever seen what an
Okay.
owl looks like when its legs are extended?
Yeah.
Don't they,
It looks friggin' horrifying!
Don't they have deceivingly long legs?
Their legs are as long as their torso.
What?
Oh,
Owls' legs are legs are actually more akin. They're actually more akin physically to like a heron or a crane.
Wow.
Their legs are
Wow.
incredibly long
They're
for
just
their body.
floofy.
And it's weird looking
Yeah.
because they're all poofy and
They're
big
so-
and
But
round
Then
up
all of
here,
a
and
sudden,
then there's just
all of a
little
sudden, they're
chicken
very
legs.
skinny and
I think
wearing
I've seen that,
pants.
where
It's-
someone has
yeah.
it and they lifted it.
That's the other thing, though. When an owl stands up when it's threatened, you can't necessarily see the normal digitigrade bending of their legs.
Right.
You can't see the chicken bend because
Right.
their legs go almost straight.
Now I'm gonna have to Google owls trying to walk. That's something that.
Well,
is
when
on the
any
to-do
bird
list.
tries to
It's
walk,
crazy.
It's hilarious.
Yes.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
unless terrestrial travel is their primary means of conveyance, like a chicken. Okay, you're going to see birds do this. Doot 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 doot.
Now is that
back
because
and
they
forth,
don't
left and right?
blink, or they have to? There's something to do with their auditory. or not
I think it
effort,
has
but
to do
the
with they
visual-
predominantly spend their time flying.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, except for chickens.
Except for chickens.
Chickens are just dumb.
Only in my dreams. Hey,
I've
chickens,
seen one
chickens
fly
are adorable.
before, and I don't
thank
think
you.
people believe me.
So,
But here we
Okay,
are talking
so-
about
yeah.
Mothman.
moving on from here, Roger and Linda reported immediately leaving the area at high speed near the old Route 62 highway to get back to town, but found the creature again atop a nearby hill as they were leaving.
It got itself free. They jumped in one vehicle and took off.
When it got itself free, they were already in the process of trying to turn
running?
their car around.
Okay.
That's when they saw it slip into the generator room.
Oh,
Tear-assing
creepy.
back around and getting to the highway, they say they saw the creature again perched on a hill as if it had basically teleported
Like
there.
poofed over there.
So
It was just there.
Wasn't trying to follow them. It was trying to retreat. Is that what I'm understanding?
No, with this one, they were reporting that it was following them.
Oh,
wow.
okay.
That originally it ran away into a room, and then when they left, it was there. As they were driving away, it was just there. They could see it on a hill right next to the road,
Creepy.
adopting its other most famous pose. There's two poses of the Mothman that you'll see everybody draw and all the from the original sightings and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one of it looming with its wings kind of out, either with arms or without,
Yeah.
and just glaring. And the other one is with it hunkered down like a giant owl.
Okay, I've seen that
with
one.
its wings wrapped around its body,
Yeah,
its
I've
legs
seen that
tucked
one.
in, and its eyes just looking.
That was the creepiest
right.
one.
This is the one that they saw right there, but as soon as they illuminated it with their headlights, it immediately spread its wings to full width of 10 feet and took flight straight into the air and then towards them.
How were they measuring this size? Like, how were they like, oh my god, that's 10 feet?
Thank you.
I'm just wondering.
No.
Sorry.
No, welcome to skeptical analysis of the paranormal. Okay? So let's do this. How do you correctly report that fish you almost caught? It was this many.
Well, yeah, you're not wrong when you use your hands. So,
There's also a problem with the human eye.
yeah.
The actual relation of what you understand to be a length visually is different than what the actual length is.
Like traffic lights. You know how huge those things
yeah,
are?
Yeah.
exactly. Okay. There's a chance that the Mothman is much smaller because it was actually a lot closer than they thought.
Right.
Or there's a chance that it was actually way bigger
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it was farther away. If you want to get really creepy with it. But the stranger part about this is how they discussed that it was perched. When the headlights hit it, it unfurled its wings, and then it just effortlessly glided towards them. Wow. It took off into the air. They could not identify a flapping. Now, have any of you ever seen what an eagle or a condor or a vulture look like when it fall glides?
Yes.
They just open their wings and fall forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not really flapping.
Now,
But usually they're at a really high altitude. Like, they're much higher than what I
see,
assume
that's the
that
thing.
would be.
I have no idea how tall this hill is.
Okay.
And there's no way
Okay.
to relate that either, unless you go
Right.
to Point Pleasant and take the tour.
I mean, you could try to
So-
look at it on Google Earth, but you still probably wouldn't
Whether I did.
know. Oh, you okay?
And there are no markers or
It's really-
anything that
okay.
actually specifically identify the hill they were referring to.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Now, like I said, though, you can go on the tours, and they will point it out to you. That was was specifically identified by Roger and Linda, and later on a county deputy.
Okay.
So as soon as it was illuminated, it took off. At this point, Roger Scarberry reported that he friggin' floored it, and he was driving a '57 Chevy, I believe. Which those particular vehicles, almost all of the 50s Fords and Chevys were largely 8-cylinder engines and absolutely could tear ass at about 100 miles per hour. That is not unbelievable.
Okay.
He reported that he was keeping it between 100 and 110,
Wow.
and that the creature was able to keep up with them.
Oh, wow.
Like next to their vehicle?
No, on top of their vehicle. He could not shake the creature despite turning through. This is not a straight path back to Point Pleasant. Despite turning through numerous areas,
Oh my
the creature
God.
effortlessly kept speed with the car. By the
So,
way,
like, this is like high, like adrenaline. I think I'm gonna freaking die. This was probably
this is the
crazy.
legitimate. This is the sighting.
Okay.
This is the initial sighting of these people.
insane.
It's not one of those, I turned a corner and saw a thing and it was a monster and
Yeah.
everything. It was
Like,
literally, this thing was
we
on
saw-
top of my car.
Yeah, we saw it. We kept seeing it. It followed us. We saw it. So, yeah, that's pretty
It followed them
valid.
for a while,
That's
okay?
terrible.
Because they all reported that the creature banged down upon the car 3 times during the drive. And this is where it gets really friggin' creepy.
As if it wasn't already.
All the while making a chittering sound, like a
Chittering.
mouse.
Chittering?
squeak. You know, what other creature?
What is chittering?
Like it said, they would only report, like a mouse squeak.
Wow.
Have you ever heard a bird chitter?
Well, yeah, but birds are cute.
Yeah, owls do that. They like do their little beep
Yeah.
thing when they
Owls also
click their
make
beak.
sounds that sound like you shoved a rabbit in a garbage disposal.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Owls are horrifying whenever you're not waiting for it, when you're not
Screech.
expecting it.
Hence the screeching
Yeah.
for
They
an
could
owl.
hear this sound
They
while
can
going
hear
that
the chittering.
fast.
Now, the reason I specify the chittering is
Okay.
really, really creepy. Okay, this is where now up until this point you've all been seeing like I've been dropping major hints of the big hoot, of the giant bird and the Birdman and everything
Right.
else in this case, right? Yeah, until we get to this part.
Okay.
Getting back to town, they did not stop. The creature itself peeled off from them when the lights of Point Pleasant were finally in view.
Okay.
The creature peeled off. They couldn't see it.
So it was like, I'm not going into town.
They saw it one last time before getting into town, because to get back into town from there, you pass by the Ohio River flood wall.
Oh.
And that's where they saw it in its final stance of its traditional pose of being furled and just looking at them. Yet again, it was just suddenly on top of a place in front of them before they could leave, before they could get back into town, just watching them this time. They pulled up to a local, it's a restaurant chain that no longer exists except for 2 places in America, one in Texas and one in Wisconsin nowadays. But it was called Dairyland. It was basically like a
Dairyland.
burger and ice cream
Like
place.
a Dairy Lou?
Kind of,
Like
very
a whip dip?
very much so. It's
Anybody
like-
know what the fuck I'm talking about?
I do.
Get out of here, Ada.
I've eaten the Hercules burger, thank you. I know what it is. But anyway, at this point, they had a dilemma. Besides having to check their britches.
Well, I'm
and
sure
everything.
it was, do I report this and sound like a crazy
Exactly.
person?
Do
or
I report this? Because there's 4 of them also thinking about,
Yeah.
even though, like nowadays, if 4 human beings witness something friggin' nuts, you can bet your ass they're going to report it immediately.
Yeah.
Right.
Back then,
It was the
this is the 60s in Appalachia. No, you don't. It doesn't matter. All 4 of them would be ostracized.
Yeah.
But
Right.
at this point, they decided.
They'd have been labeled like a crazy Satan sex cult or
High
something.
on drugs or
So
something.
thinking about that and everything, what do you think the decision would be? What would be the decision to make?
They would probably wait, I
Well,
would guess. Like they would probably, it'd be one of those things like, why didn't you report this sooner?
yeah, everybody says that about everything,
Well,
but then
think worse though.
They didn't do it at all.
When you live in a culture that you you can't go tell anything without people destroying you publicly.
Yeah.
What do you need?
well, you need
Support.
evidence.
You need proof.
Yeah.
Okay, that too.
So they went
Evidence.
back.
What? No, they did not.
Wow.
They did.
What would they? What?
They
No.
decided in their haste and still adrenalized to turn back around to try to go find some kind of proof or evidence, or at least prove to themselves that they had witnessed what
Did
they saw.
like at least take a
wow, that's
camera or
amazing.
something with them?
They did not.
Oh my gosh.
I can tell you right now,
What was-
this was not reported.
What's the plan here,
This
guys?
was not reported, but this was the 60s in Appalachia. There were probably at least 3 guns in that car. Okay, you when you're walking around the Appalachian Mountains, just number one thing there in that particular time period, you had to watch out for very angry bobcats.
Well, yeah. I mean,
You-
that's just like living in Oklahoma.
everybody had a shotgun, just for general purpose out there. Okay,
You live in the backwoods. You got to protect yourself.
Exactly. But regardless, there's never a mention of any firearms or anything.
Wow, okay.
In this report, they did decide to turn around to go try to
Well-
get this, so they wouldn't be ostracized as being drunks.
I wouldn't tell anyone, even if I had a firearm. I would never have reported that part.
No,
Because I wouldn't want somebody to be like, oh, well, they turned around to chase who knows what
Yeah.
with some guns. Yeah, that's how shit goes real wrong.
However, they fail. in going back.
What?
Halfway there, they all cooled off and were like, this is a bad idea.
Thank God.
And when they stopped the car and turned around to come back to town, they drove back a mile, it was about a mile basically on the way back to town, and they stopped because now in the middle of the road is a large dog carcass that was not there when they drove back out.
Oh no.
And it's there. And according to
Not
one
Fido.
of them, okay, one of the witnesses, it's unsure as to which one of them, though, but it definitely was one of these four said this. Who knows if they said it in their haste or whatever. As they passed the carcass, the creature was there behind shrubs on the side of the road and leapt up and flew back over the car again. That's the moment when
you just gave me chills.
That's the moment when they said screw it. That's the moment when they went back to town. That's the moment when they went ahead and reported it to the police. And it gets weirder from there.
Great.
Give me goosebumps.
See, the first one is the most important one here. This is one of the ones that has the most information on it.
Okay.
The rest are all largely little sightings here and there, and some genuinely scary ones. But shortly after this, they went and they did finally decide to notify the police. They told their story to one Deputy Millard Halstead. Halstead took them seriously because they didn't smell of booze. Mm-hmm. They were not acting completely irrational. This is a small town. Everybody knows everybody. But these are four people who there is no reason to think these people were just suddenly goofy.
Right. Well, good for you, Halstead.
Yeah, he documented as their fright seemed absolutely genuine, so he took it seriously. He got into his car, and the two vehicles went back to the TNT plant. He and the witnesses. They all went back together.
Okay.
At least so they could point to what they were talking about.
Okay.
The dog's body was missing.
What?
Uh-oh.
There was no sign of the creature when they went there.
Oh, no, but I'm wondering if they even did they look and see where it was tangled at,
did.
and there was
Nothing.
everything was totally fine.
There is something that's left behind.
Oh no.
Okay, but the body of the dog was missing. There was no sign of the red-eyed monster. But when Deputy Millard turned on his police radio to report on where he'd gone,
Don't say it.
a
You're gonna say
strange,
it.
garbled sound screeched out at high volume as though someone were playing a tape recorder at fast-forward speed.
Oh, the garbling.
Now, I can tell you from being in EMS that if your radio is on, it can squelch.
Yeah.
It can sound really, really frightening all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Not fast-forwarded.
No.
Not like something chittering.
Oh, I don't like chittering.
Yep. That's why I use that word.
I hate it.
So,
Thanks. I hate it.
This was the very first major sighting of what would become known as the Mothman. Now, from here...
Okay, so this was reported. He took their report and went out there and looked and... Mm-hmm. So this is officially reported.
The final part of this was Linda and Roger Scarberry were so rattled by this they could not sleep. Okay, at all. Linda especially had trouble sleeping for days.
I can imagine.
The next day, the couples went back during daylight, and they did not find anything around the wire. They didn't find anything around where they saw the creature jumping around, but they did find very strange footprints that looked like two horseshoes put together.
Two horseshoes put together.
But smooth.
But so not like a human foot, but
like a
not
human
necessarily like a bird foot.
So
Unless those two bird feet were stuck together or were standing together. This is speculated to be one of the reasons why that reporter would later on call it the Mothman.
Oh, dun dun dun.
Interesting.
Okay, that makes more sense. So
Oh,
it kind
okay,
of
got
it
it.
looks like an X. If you put a horseshoe turned up and then a horseshoe turned down next to each other, it's like a weird. Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
Which absolutely can look like insect feet.
Yeah.
But it can also look like bird feet, depending on where it is.
I can't tell.
They're
Moths
so
have
little.
moths have at the very end of their little feet. They've got
little feelers.
no, they've got two little hooks
Oh, okay.
on the end of their little doodle bop down here.
God, that makes it sound cute.
They're cute little
But when they're
little feet.
8
Those
feet
are the ones that know
tall,
where sketchers.
Yeah.
Not mad.
So,
Okay, all right.
okay, this was the first major sighting of the Mothman, and oh, I forgot to mention. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible at this. I forgot to mention. So you remember that dog that was talked about in the Scarberries when they went back? The dog carcass that was on the road? Later reported that same night, a local landowner had an encounter with what would become later known, what would be later identified as the Mothman, with bright lights and strange sounds in the woods and two eyes staring at him from the woods, that his dog ran out to go encounter, and the dog never came back.
Oh, no.
It's the same night.
Oh, wow.
The same night as the Scarberries encounter.
Okay, so something happened.
Exactly.
Something happened.
And from here, though, is where it goes insane.
You just keep saying, like, okay, now here's where it's going to get crazy.
Well, this is the thing.
This is already crazy.
You got to understand, the whole thing about the Mothman, first and foremost, the Mothman is mislabeled. Because the Mothman is technically a creature that has existed in human myth for hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Okay.
And this is just the American incarnation of it.
Right. We tend to do that.
It became the Mothman because at the time it was literally like some anonymous editor or a headline writer named it Mothman as a takeoff on the then popular and very campy television show Batman.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
1967. Adam West
60s,
was rocking it with the Batusi all over the place. Okay.
Okay. That checks out.
Now the problem is though exactly what the Scarberries feared did in fact happen. Within 2 days, this was reported. Roger and Linda reported it to the press, and so did the deputy.
Oh, to the press?
Within
Why
2
did they report it to the press?
days. Because it's a small town. And there is another reason why they reported it to the press that involves something 10 years previous.
Well, I can also understand, like, if 4 people witnessed this thing and they were like, we have got to warn the town for their safety, I could understand them reporting it.
There's also the fact that 10 years previous, West Virginia was the site of one of the most interesting extraterrestrial situations.
Oh, okay. 10 years before this?
Yeah. Roughly a little bit more than 10 years. It's actually about 13,
okay,
all said and told. But it was 1954. There was a period of time in which a large amount of UFOs were reported in West Virginia, one of which was tracked flying all the way from West Virginia down to Alabama, where it reportedly exploded.
Holy cow.
Wow.
Oh, and that gets even better because of the strange link to this with something called the Braxton Monster.
I've never heard of it.
The Flatwoods Monster.
I've heard of that.
That's the one I talked to you about before this, too. Now, let's turn back the clock real quick to 1954.
All right.
And let's talk about the Flatwoods Monster.
Oh, no.
For those of you out there who don't know what the Flatwoods Monster is, it is actually a creature more synonymous with science fiction than most things. In certain parts of the world, the Flatwoods Monster is the image that people think of when you say aliens.
Okay.
Over here, we largely think of the big gray bug-eyed little guys and everything. Right. The rest of the world thinks of the Flatwoods Monster, which looks... It's hard to say what it actually looks like without censoring myself. But, and everybody can help out here, because basically at first glance it looks like a sex toy, but...
which one is this one?
It's that one I drew for you that time. I'll pull up the picture of it real quick. You have seen this thing. All of us here.
Yeah.
I see. I looked it up. I see.
You looked up the Flatwoods? This is the Flatwoods Monster.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
This is right.
Oh, right.
That goes
okay.
where the sun doesn't shine.
Man,
sure.
Right?
That is
that is
kind of hard to describe.
But the thing is, you have literally seen that thing in places that you wouldn't, in our age group, you wouldn't expect. Anybody here play video games?
Uh-huh. Or
Japan is obsessed with that creature, by the way.
a Skeksis.
Well, Skeksis is
Is
definitely
sexies.
definitely under the Birdman. But here's the thing. So the Flatwoods encounter, to make this quick and everything, in 1954, with the incredible amount of UFO sightings that happened on the same night, it basically happened in 1954. It was around the same time as a ridiculous amount of UFO sightings in the same area that would go, like I said, all the way down to Alabama. I highly recommend, if you are interested in this, there is another book just called The Braxton Monster. It's an excellent read. Everybody should look that one up. It's like it's not on like an e-reader, but you can just have to buy the book.
Yeah.
But it's only like $20, and it's a full read with loads of information.
I will link the books that you're mentioning on our website.
The Braxton Monster was seen by a mother and her 2 boys and an older cousin. The mother was not a person considered in her local community to be a person who would make up shit.
Okay.
She was a person considered to be a little wild and adventurous, but she was not a person who was considered to be a loon or to be a crazy gossip for attention. Basically, in the middle, in the dusk hours of this day, the 2 boys were outside playing, tossing a football around, as you do. These 2 men are still alive, by the way.
Okay.
The same people who produced the Mothman Prophecy also produced a secondary follow-up movie, The Braxton Monster, also on Prime. It's also, if you have a Prime subscription, it is free to watch.
Okay.
It is also just as entertaining, and it interviews the 2 men who were the actual eyewitnesses of the Braxton Monster when they were respectively like 10 and 9 years old.
Okay.
It's one thing if you witness a UFO when you're 4 years old.
Yeah.
It's another thing when you witness it when you're 10.
Yeah.
Like, that's different. But, like, you got brain in there somewhere. But, and then you also witnessed it with an older cousin who was in the National Guard, and you also witnessed it with your mother.
Uh-huh.
Going outside playing, there was a sound of a small roar, and then what appeared to be, pardon me,
Are you dying?
every day. There was what appeared to be a explosion with no sound of an explosion and bright lights emanating from the woods.
Oh.
Now, this is the 50s. Bright lights in the middle of the woods, people investigated for funsies anyway.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Was it a clear night?
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure.
Well,
I'm just asking.
Oh, no, that's actually really important because that's how they were able to identify one of the key factors of the Braxton Monster.
Okay.
Getting up into the hills, with the mom decided to go with him because she was very much a hitch up her pants and let's go do things person. The older cousin said, yeah, we need to go look see what the heck that is to at least report it. And the 2 kids were even thinking, is like, if it's an asteroid or anything, it might have gold in it. Let's go. They even say that in the interview.
Wow.
But they run up the hill, and there in the ground is something that appears to be, they have no idea, actually. They can't describe it. It was glowing, and it was bright white.
Okay.
Another key point, the town dog ran along with them.
The town dog.
It was a stray animal that was just everybody's friend, one of those. It was a small enough town that the dog just went house to house and everything, but the dog was out with them, and it went with them. Flatwoods is a small town.
Okay.
It went up to the hills with them. Upon getting to the light, the dog ran forward to bark at the light in the area. This is where things become the legend, as the family reported an intense pungent odor. A little bit sulfurish, kind of acidic, but regardless, would easily turn your stomach.
Okay.
Said the dog barked until this mist started rolling out. They could visually see it. It was brownish in the bright light. And the dog barked, then whined, and ran away, where about 2 days later, the dog was found up around a local area, had vomited its guts out, and was dead.
I'm very upset with all of the dogs facing mortality in this story.
It happens, okay? But, so from there, the boys and the mother and the cousin all smelled the same thing, and it was putrid. They didn't know what it was, but it was after the dog ran away that's when it happened. And they noticed just next to the bright light where a large oak tree was, there was a shape that wasn't a tree. And it was approximately 10 feet tall.
Ooh.
And it was that thing. And then they shine their flashlight on it, and upon doing so is when its eyes lit up, and stared at them. Now, to hear them describe the eyes, this thing is weird. Its eyes, they reported it being a greenish-orange light, which I can tell you, as an artist, that's a hard thing to replicate.
Weird.
Because it basically means that part of the spectrum that's coming out of whatever is being broadcast in that regard can only be seen as green while intermingling with red light and not blending. It's a weird phenomena, but it's why you can't see certain colors. But they described it specifically as an orangish, greenish light coming from its eyes.
Okay.
The thing about the arms being on it is actually up for debate, because their original depiction, it didn't have arms.
Okay.
The later depictions of it described it as having what appeared to be arms, but that's also easily justified as tree branches as it was moving towards them. This is the fun part here as well. It started moving towards them. No. Specifically, all 4 of them identified that it did not move in a straight path. It took what appeared to be about a hemicircle path around them and then approached them silently.
Whoa.
And not touching the ground.
I don't like that at all.
No,
No.
That's quite creepy.
So, of course, once again, they erred on the exact human side of caution that you should do and hightailed it and ran away, screaming into the night. I look at that creature, okay, and I don't see what a lot of people see of an alien with a fancy hat.
Kind of like a Jawa from Star Wars.
Kind of, but I see a pupa.
A pupa.
I see a larval state
A pupa.
of a creature, or at least a transport mechanism for something else, or potentially a robotic sentry from another planet. Who knows? But at the same time, this is 1954, right? So we're seeing, which by the way, the Braxton Monster also later in about, I want to say it was somewhere in around West Virginia, or this may have even been in Ohio, there was another encounter with one of these creatures, of a man and his wife traveling down the road who saw the same thing, lights in the woods. The car started, they smelled a really horrible smell. They pulled over, the husband thought his car was on fire.
Oh.
Checked his car, nothing was wrong, saw the light in the woods. While the husband was staring out at the light in the woods, the wife began screaming in the car because approaching them was one of these things.
Ooh.
She's one of the ones who identified it with arms.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, no sign of feet, effortlessly floating towards them, making no contact with the ground.
That's creepy.
Horrific, pungent odor. We have the reason I'm bringing up the Braxton Monster is specifically because of similarities in myth. You have a large, looming, terrifying thing that its actual physical coloring gets changed in description by numerous people, which happens with the Mothman. Numerous people say it's flesh-colored with ashy wings, it's completely black, it's an ashy color. Some people have said it's brown and everything.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Braxton Monster. It's called the Green Monster, colloquially, because they say that it reflected green off of its main body and its head was reddish with those strange eyes. Then they also said it was completely black. It's jet black. It's grayish, which sounds iridescent to me, or light refracting.
Yeah.
Or light absorbing.
Yeah.
Which is also how you stay hidden from things. To me, this thing resembles either some kind of pod or suit or something. It may have been protecting something.
Yeah.
The bright light itself may have been what it was protecting. But either way, we have something with strange eyes and an nearly undefinable body that sort of resembles a taller worm-like structure. Now let's cut ahead to 1954. No, not 1954, 1964.
Okay.
In a place called Grafton, West Virginia. Pretty far north. This one's actually closer to Pennsylvania. But it was also one of the places that absolutely witnessed the UFO activity in 1954. 1964, I believe it was a sheriff's deputy, reports something that is now called the Grafton Monster. That was reported to be about 8 feet tall, shock white, leathery / soft looking, but meaty as hell, with no definable head. The Braxton Monster, by the way, it goes back and forth as to whether or not it was a large spherical head resting inside something, or if that whole thing was its head with just a thing poking forward and 2 eyes on it.
Wow.
Like a caterpillar.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So then, have any of you ever seen what a cicada looks like when it comes out of that first skin?
Fucking creepy, right?
Creepy, yellowish, off-whitish,
Like a
kind of
grub
slimy
sort of.
and
Yeah.
fleshy looking. You ever seen a crab when it molts?
Yep.
Isn't it super soft?
It's super soft. They also look a bit inflated because they're swollen. Look at a tarantula that sheds its skin. If you haven't had nightmares recently, look at
I like tarantulas.
So do I. But when they come out of their body, they basically leave behind a whole tarantula,
I've
and
never seen that.
They're
Stay,
weird.
Stay on their back for a minute.
Yeah,
Twitch.
they're weird. They're weird floppy
Poor
doodles,
babies.
and they are horrifying looking. They look fleshy, and they sort of expand as the outer shell is hardening and everything. So we look at the Grafton Monster 10 years after this. Imagine a large cicada coming out of its shell that is fleshy and has not grown anything. Now cut to 2 years later, down about 100 miles away. That's only about, it's about 150 miles from Grafton to Point Pleasant, but it's only 90 miles from Point Pleasant to Braxton, to Flatwoods.
Oh, kind of in that area.
And that
triangular
whole
area.
area, that whole area there was witness to that UFO sighting in 1954.
Wow.
So now we know how moths and butterflies and other things like that form. They start out as a caterpillar form. They go in a larval form. They go to a pupa chrysalis, and then they hatch, and then they slowly inflate and harden.
Right.
And thus Mothman.
And thus Mothman.
I personally feel that those 3 particular creatures are interconnected because of where they showed up and the timeline for them. 54 to 64 to 66.
So, so what you're saying is there's a possibility this thing mutated into Mothman.
I metamorphed. I would say.
Metamorphed. Yeah.
Okay. Like a butterfly.
Yeah. Okay.
I absolutely, and
I can see that.
I personally support the feeling that whatever these were, I largely think that if this is a legitimate creature, I think that it did come from space.
It came from space.
I also personally feel that the Birdman is its own thing.
Yeah.
I actually feel and it is specifically, I think that the Birdman absolutely was a thing that terrorized Point Pleasant as well. But I personally feel that the Mothman is distinct.
Yeah.
Because of specifically the Scarberries and several other reports that described the shuffling gait, several people that did actually describe something that resembled insect features, and no one ever being able to find feathers.
Well, yeah.
So here's the deal. With the Mothman, to continue talking about the Mothman, you have a couple of different ways that you can take. You can either talk about all of the sightings of the Mothman trying to validate this thing. That is never a good idea when it comes down to cryptids. Reason being, the more you talk about people seeing things, the more you're going to start believing the dumbest stuff.
Right.
It's going to happen. And also, there are literally too many to count. And there's more nowadays, too.
Do we know how many, did they take like a precise number of how many people reported that within that year?
That's the problem. I was trying to track that back down, and one of the sources that I was using for that did not have as accurate a timeline as I thought it did.
Well, I watched a documentary once that I think that the number was in like the 60s.
There's a lot. I do know that there is definitely more than 50.
Yeah.
I can tell you that. And it exploded in that town from 1966 to 1967. Everybody.
Like a lot.
Everybody saw this creature. The Scarberries were kind of ridiculed and treated awfully at first for reporting their sighting, because this was the 60s now. The UFO craze had died down.
Right, yeah.
Okay? So mostly everybody was quick to launch and tell them that they are stupid, this is awful, and everything. Even all the way up to an associate professor of biology at West Virginia University, Dr. Robert Smith, who made it a huge point to describe it as a sandhill crane.
Oh, okay. Like, you did not
which stands
see
4
that.
to 6 feet tall, has a large wingspan, and red feathers around its eyes.
Okay.
And
but-
capable of murdering a dog.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You see, that's the problem that I have with it being a crane or a stork.
But it's not just murdering a dog, it's looking into somebody's eyeballs while you're murdering
And then
a
That-
dog.
cleaning up the
See,
crimes.
that's
Yeah,
the
cleaning up the
Yeah.
crime
This is why
scene.
I lean a little bit closer to the big hoot theory of a
Yeah.
giant owl species.
Okay.
Or at least an owl that had fluffed the ever-loving crap out of itself in defense.
Right.
Which, if you've ever seen an expanded
Yes,
owl, they are
yes.
hilariously, scary. They're really funny.
What's that one species of owl, that
Oh, the
gets really fluffy and then it, like,
changed
The
So
Japanese,
gets
the
really,
Japanese
really-
wood owl.
yeah,
That's
it
a
gets really
species.
thin.
It's a
The shape of
species
their-
native to
a
Japan.
horned owl.
Yes,
They
and it
changed the
makes
shape
those little
of it.
horns. It's so weird.
They're
It's
like
so it
start
can pretend to be a
round
part
and-
of a tree, and then it can pretend to
Yes.
be a gigantic psychotic demon to scare
Yeah.
off other creatures. Yeah, because it's actually very tiny.
Okay.
It's a tiny little poots of an
It's
owl.
cute.
So, other explanations included, of course, tried and true, weather balloons.
Weather balloons.
Yeah. Or
Of
more,
course.
more to the point, huge gas-filled balloons released by students during doing air current experiments.
Okay, what freaking students? Janet or whoever?
Listen,
Sounds
listen,
like
man.
Janet.
It was like there's a reason why weather balloon is a swear word when you get into the paranormal. Okay, it's like weather balloon is how you
hilarious.
tell someone don't talk
If it
about
was a whole freaking class, someone would have known that they were releasing weather balloons.
I only use-
the class themselves.
They did, but that part is not really documented. Is the issue. But
Of course it's not.
Weather balloon is one of those things that people like myself use to tell someone it's Chinatown. Don't ask questions.
Okay.
It's like, you do not ask questions about that. It's a weather balloon.
Yeah.
Got it? So, the original witnesses were, of course, ridiculed. They were absolutely just raked over the coals. Meanwhile, at home, the Scarberries were plagued at home by weird sounds at night, beeping noises, and something like a tape recorder being played at high speed.
Okay, so the incident started happening
Yeah.
so it was two separate couples, and they both
It's
started
the
having weird
The
things happen
Mallets,
at home.
the other couple, the Mallets, actually did not talk about it near as much as the Scarberries did.
Wow.
Because they saw what happened to Roger and Linda,
Well,
and they
yeah.
just said, nope, bad gas travels fast in a small town. Not
Yeah.
doing this.
Oh, that's crazy.
After all this of plausibility and talking about these things, I'm
Yeah.
going to talk about why it all gets stranger.
Okay.
Because in this period, after it was something to the point of oh God, I think it was just, there were two big ones that happened again. One was like only a day or so later, and the other one was within the same week. One of them was an air.
More other sightings?
Yes.
Okay.
There was one of a pilot who was flying a plane, and I believe he was flying it from Pennsylvania to Ohio, and it passed over the area of the Ohio River valley there,
Yeah.
where he saw what looked like a large bird with a long neck and a 10-foot wingspan flying without flapping at high altitude. That appeared to be grayish and some kind of red at the front.
Wow.
He
Private
reported it.
Pilot.
Sounds like
Yes,
a Japanese
that was a
crane.
pilot. That he reported it, but that's just it though. This is West Virginia.
Why would a Japanese crane be
Well,
out there?
why would a thunderbird be in friggin' West Virginia? The largest known bird species in West Virginia, is I forget what it is, but its wingspan is like maybe 5 feet.
It's just the red part kind of got me.
Exactly.
That's strange.
But he also definitely described it as a blackish gray.
And this is the first
creature.
time we're hearing about it having a long neck.
This is the thing, though. Before the Mothman, sightings of giant birds with long necks have been all over Appalachia. Then, of course, you have the one that happened literally just the night after. This is the reason why the Scarberries stopped getting ridiculed. This one wasn't reported immediately, but it happened literally the night after the Scarberries encounter on November 16th of that year. It was the Miss Marcella Bennett, her 2-year-old daughter Tina, and her brother Raymond Wamsley and his wife Kathy had decided to visit family members who lived near the TNT area.
Okay.
They had read about the strange being in the newspaper, which it took literally a day to publish because the deputy went and just said, there's a thing, backing up the Scarberries. They had read about the strange being, but they thought it might be fun to go out and look for it, because that's the other thing you do.
No, they didn't.
Raven, where do we live? What do we do? I heard there's a Bigfoot in this woods and that it may be able to kill somebody. Let's go throw a rock at it.
Well, especially like before you had telephones and stuff you could play on all day.
Exactly. So they decided it might be even fun to go look for it. Okay, basically snipe hunting. It's like, let's go find Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Now I've gone snipe hunting.
You understand, Jason, right? It's like,
oh yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So they paid a visit. At the home of a sister and brother-in-law and decided to depart around 9 p.m. They walked out to the car. Marcella was in the lead, holding a cigarette and her car keys while holding her child, because the 60s.
Okay, yeah.
Raymond Wamsley, her brother, was the first to see the creature coming toward them out of the sky. Brilliant lights filled the area. Marcella kept on walking toward the car, oblivious to Raymond's shouts to stop and return to the house. What? She started to unlock the passenger door. As she looked down, she saw a man's legs that looked like they were covered with gray feathers. She did not see any feet. Like a slow-motion horror film, she pulled her eyes up. Standing only a few feet away from her was a giant man-bird, its head sunken into the shoulder area and tilted to one side.
Ooh.
She said she didn't see any red eyes, but later she said that she might have been too frightened to even notice, because she saw giant feather man and went screaming into the night. But
this one came with lights?
Yes, her brother reported.
That's
Wamsley reported that he saw the creature descending,
right,
and said that there were lights in this case. He's not very specific as to what they were. He just said he noticed lights. This is a pretty common thing with encountering cryptids and other paranormal situations. A lot of people liken this to a foxfire situation, or the really bonkers out there description is that it's an extra-dimensional gate opening at the same time for a creature to just come in and go, what the hell, where am I?
Okay.
Oh.
And was this in the media? I'm sorry if I missed that. Was this in the media before this encounter? Like, was this in the newspaper?
This one would come out later. These people had read the Scarberry's account.
Okay, got it. Okay.
But this would come out later because they were freaked out by it being so close to their house, was the issue.
Got it. Okay.
And this was like right outside their home, right?
Yes, this is right outside,
right outside
their home. And let's see here.
And again, I think it's so strange that it's...
This is a key point too, okay? Whenever they witnessed the creature moving around, they, as it turned, it basically appeared to be moving with the same shuffling gait. However, this time, though, is different from a lot of the other sightings, because when Marcella took some steps to move, she fell down. She fell down with her daughter in her arms and was trying to protect her daughter because she thought the thing was big enough to carry them both off. She couldn't see, because it's basically in that dear God help me moment. Mm-hmm. She's the only person who has ever reported flapping.
Oh, really?
Heard flapping of wings,
but
and then it was gone.
Wasn't she the only one that's gotten that close?
She's one of the only ones who's reportedly getting that close, but it was close to it standing. She didn't see it take off though, because she fell and with her baby in her arms, and she was looking at the ground, and she hears flapping.
Wow.
Wamsley himself didn't hear about it, didn't actually see the thing take off, because he was freaking out. He was basically trying to get to Marcella. At that point, he was trying to run to her. He did not witness the creature take off. Whenever they both tried to notice it, it was gone.
Again, I think it's strange how it's presenting itself in front of like groups.
Yeah,
of people.
very.
The fun thing is here too. Marcella would report it to the police. This is one of the main reasons why the Scarberrys were at first ridiculed, and then later not, and then later ridiculed again. But because it happened literally the night after.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, night after night, though, this is where it starts getting hard to track down everything. Because from that point on, up until the Silver Bridge disaster, there were sightings every single week.
The press was just like, another 14 sightings this week.
Also, yet again, something that you have said numerous times here, Raven.
Yeah.
There was no internet.
Right.
There was very little entertainment in the way in a backwoods community.
Yeah.
Everybody's telling the same story at this point.
Yeah, and there's always that, what do you call it? Like a fever rush, almost. Like, people just catch the fever of it.
Hysteria?
Hysteria, yeah. Everybody's just seeing it all over the place.
Well, it's the same thing. This is why I brought up witch hunts. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
This is zeitgeist infiltration at this point. Basically, you have a new thing that is exciting.
Right. Everybody wants to see it. Everybody wants to be a part of it.
It is a small, isolated community.
Right.
And yes, everybody wants to see it and be a part of it. This is why people in small towns would literally dress up to the nines to go to a friggin' Dairy Queen back in the day when it first opened up, because it's the new thing. Numerous sightings include seeing it around hospitals, seeing it when people go to pick up their husbands from work.
So they actually started seeing it in town.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
All of these, though, there were more sightings on both sides of the river too. This is the thing, okay? And this is where I threw up my hands and gave up, because that's why I said the amount of sightings is technically unlistable.
Yeah.
Because it's unclear how many people actually say they witnessed this creature.
Right.
Because it didn't just happen in Point Pleasant; it happened in Ohio and even in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
So that's the thing.
So up until this point, is it before the Silver Bridge, were people reporting it to be dangerous to them or just looming?
See, that's the thing. There is actually no account of the Mothman actually harming anyone. The way that the Scarberries presented it, basically, in my personal opinion, permeated public opinion and turned into the ideas of it's projecting some kind of fear cloud, or being an extra-dimensional entity, we are naturally averse to it and whatnot. Because the Scarberries just basically described it as turning a corner and being met with a bear.
Yeah.
Like, I turned a corner and I was terrified. There was a 7-foot-tall what the hell, and I ran away, because that's what you do as a sane human being.
Right.
And everybody turned that, as time went on, this got manipulated and turned into something more paranormal. Largely thanks to 2 individuals.
Uh-oh. About to call you out, individuals.
Oh, yeah. This is why it's also this is why it's important, too, that, like you guys all talked about, the Mothman Prophecy movie. Okay.
The little flash.
The director of that movie based the points that he took from, the main source that he drew from, was the book The Mothman Prophecy by a Mr. John Keel. John Keel is literally the man responsible for making the Mothman the cryptid urban legend thing that we have today.
See, I was actually about to ask, I haven't read the book. Obviously, I've seen the movie, but I haven't read the book. So I was wondering if the book is more like a docu-book, or if it's just like a, here's my story about what happened.
The book is weird. It's both.
Okay.
It's based on the actual accounts of people in Point Pleasant. John Keel spent a lot of time in Point Pleasant.
Okay.
Up until, I think he didn't leave until, like, I think he left like September the following year, something like that. He gathered loads of information from just about every private account that he could, and he was working with a Miss Mary Heyer, who was a local reporter who had a little column that was the everyday column. Her column was called "Where the Waters Mingle" in the local newspaper. But Mary Heyer was one. It's basically the place where local civic reporting would happen.
Okay.
So if you had something that was like, "Ain't this some shit?" you told it to Mary Heyer. Okay, that's just what you did. But Mary took this incredibly seriously. Mary was a lady who had served on this newspaper for like something like 20 or 30 years. She actually took her local reporting very seriously. People, that's listed about her. She was not it wasn't just a gossip column. If she wrote something that seemed like gossip, it was something that was important.
Right.
Okay?
Probably firsthand from whoever
And
reported it.
she definitely wasn't the kind of person who would just say, these are interdimensional beings who want to steal your babies. She would report on, like, say, a local saw a fireball in the sky.
Wow.
It's like, no idea what this is, but we do know that the government's investigating it.
Yeah.
That's how she would do it. She was the direct liaison for Mr. John Keel, helping to him gather this information.
Okay.
Because it would take almost an entire other episode to talk about. I can't completely talk about Ms. Heyer's involvement, because Ms. Heyer's involvement ends with a reported Men in Black sighting.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay? So,
Wow.
yeah. John Keel, though, is responsible for the book The Mothman Prophecy that he would later publish in the late 70s, early 80s, and everything, and that is the other thing that revitalized the Mothman.
Okay.
The other person to blame for a lot of the Mothman's popularity, Mr. Gray Barker published a book called The Silver Bridge after the disaster.
Okay.
Mr. Gray Barker is the first person to potentially link the Mothman with the Silver Bridge.
Okay.
He implies it in the book. He does not
He's the guy.
directly state
Okay.
it. He's the one who reports that some people blamed the Mothman in this case, saying that some people reported seeing him there.
Interesting.
Okay.
When most of the people of Point Pleasant wouldn't actually say that at all. Gray Barker's the guy who did this. Gray Barker, by the way, an important individual. This man was actually one of the forefront people that is responsible for paranormal research.
Oh.
Gray Barker was one of the guys at the height of the flying saucer popularity of the 40s and 50s who reported on UFOs throughout the country.
Okay.
Now, it was later revealed later on in post his death and everything that he was absolutely 100% a skeptic.
Yeah.
He never approached UFOs or anything from the perspective of genuinely believing people's stories, but he always reported them with as much veracity as he could from the people.
So it's more like I don't know if I believe it, but I believe you believe it.
Well, more along the lines of, I'm going to write this from the perspective of a person who believes in
it.
this,
Yeah,
when
okay.
I personally don't, aka us.
Yeah.
So Mr. Barker is one of the people responsible as well. Largely, most people know of John Keel when they talk about the Mothman because he's the one who wrote the Mothman Prophecy.
Right.
That is the book that made the Mothman the figure that it is in the public lexicon.
But he wasn't the one that actually linked it.
He's
with
not the one who
bridge,
linked it with the bridge.
like they did in
who
the
linked-
movie.
It's Gray Barker
Okay.
who is the person who did that, which then caused John Keel to link the Mothman into being a harbinger of doom.
Okay.
Which is incredibly easy to do because of the main cultures that inhabit West Virginia.
Okay.
West Virginia was largely settled by Scot-Irish immigrants
Oh.
200 years ago.
My people
Yes.
who are superstitious.
Paranoid, whose ancient mythologies and legends are basically ghosts, fairies, and horrible, nasty things that want to rip your knees out and charge you for them. Mm-hmm. So, look up fairies, kids. They're not nice. And you mix that with intermingling with Native American culture and superstition, and boom.
Yeah.
You have Birdmen, you have the Mothman, you have strange, shambling, dark, winged things in the middle of the night, okay, all wailing about doom, which, by the way, is the Banshee!
Yeah, I don't know if I love that wailing part.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. It is very interesting in the whole mythos of, the area and humanity, and I don't know. I'm intrigued. I'm also intrigued by, as a media guy, I'm also intrigued by the media influence and that sort of stuff. That really, really is captivating to me.
That's one of the best parts of when you get into any kind of cryptid research, is when you find, is this something that has a solid legend before radio and television or post radio and television?
Right.
Because if it's
Right.
post radio and television, now you're entering into basically the creepypasta zeitgeist. You're entering into the the thing is, it's still relevant because it's the modern tall tale versus the old tall tale.
Yeah,
it's the mutation of an old myth into a modern perspective. Okay, case in point, I've got four great points here to point out of why the Mothman isn't unique at all. Especially
you, Mothman.
Especially with Scott. Well, he's definitely the cutest.
Basic bitch.
He's definitely the cutest, and he's definitely one of the most fascinating to look at as far as the general appearance of them. Because I mean, Bigfoot is just a man who doesn't manscape.
Just a giant, hairy man.
Skinwalkers are probably largely a mountain lion with mange.
Yeah.
Okay, but when you get down to it, we have, especially with Scott Irish origins. Okay, I don't even have time to talk about how all those are connected with other cultures as well. But let's keep to the traditional Celto-Gaelic, the Gallic origins and everything. So we've got your banshees. Okay,
right.
The banshee. Also known as in one of the oldest depictions of them, going into where all of those myths originate from, no matter what people tell you, all of that largely originates from Wales.
Okay.
It all
it? Wales?
Ha ha!
Get out.
Oh!
Get out.
Oh.
You've been hanging out with your husband too long.
I got mom jokes for days.
This would be the Caharaith. The Caharaith is one of the originators of the Banshee. It would later turn into the Banshee and other things like that, and it just permeated throughout the Celtic areas. But it is a lurking, wailing figure.
Is it considered a cryptid, the Banshee?
Oh, God, yeah.
Was it
okay, I thought it was just like a folklore-ish. Well, I guess
what do you think cryptids are?
Well, okay, but I have a question at the end of this about another... Okay. Anyway.
So... a lurking, wailing figure in the dark that was always a portent of doom.
Right.
It was depicted as either a hag or as a shambling humanoid figure that resembled a woman, maybe, if, something wrong with her face.
The hag in the woods. Yeah.
Except specifically, the Caharaith and the older depictions of the Banshee are all depicted as having ashen wings and walking with a shuffling gait.
Really?
Interesting.
Yes. And typically glowing eyes. Which then brings up another part of white people get scared in the mists, yo. Okay? One I mentioned during the Skinwalkers talk, when we talked about the black dogs.
Right,
When we talked about the Madi-Doo. Mm-hmm. The Madi-Doo being a legendary creature of Welsh mythology that is actually a cryptid, more so than just a legend.
Okay.
Because it is reported to have haunted a specific castle around the Isle of Man. Ooh. Now, it's documented in Welsh mythology, but it is a Manx legend. It's from the Isle of Man. It was the black dog with the glowing red eyes.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Now, typically, it's documented as glowing red eyes. Typically speaking, normal animals' eye shines, like dogs, cats, birds, and everything, your typical eye shines range anywhere from amberish yellow to greenish blue to shiny pinkish white. It's when an animal's eyes are actually reflecting red, there's something wrong with that animal. It means that it's either there's blood in its eyes or something's really wrong with your lighting. But that's what it means. So the Madi-Doo is definitely one of those that exists, and the Madi-Doo was absolutely a portent of doom. When it would show up, whoever it was actually following would die within 3 days.
Oh my gosh.
Then you have hopping into Christian theology, you get into demonology, and then you deal with the Goetian demons listed in the Key of Solomon, namely you deal with Stolas and Paimon, and you deal with a lot also popular figures in pop culture. Okay, but Stolas being the owl demon.
Yeah.
Which looks like a 7-foot-tall man-sized owl with large glowing eyes and a head sunk into its shoulders.
Wow.
So, this is a thing that has existed in these cultures. Oh, and also, take the Scot-Irish superstition, and then you also add on to it the tragedy that occurred here.
Right.
Not the bridge. That happened when the settlers settled to one Chief Cornstalk.
Okay.
Mr.
Go
Cornstalk.
on.
What
The
happened
massacre
to him?
of Chief Cornstalk and his three
don't
sons.
know. I don't know anything about that.
It was at Point Pleasant.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Was it really?
During the French and Indian Wars. This is a lot of history to go over, and I'm going to keep it short.
Okay.
Okay. But basically, the tribes around that area sided with the French.
Okay.
It did not go well
Okay.
because they were dealing largely with angry Scots and Irish people, and that's just the fastest way to tear down a wall, is just tell them to do it and make them mad.
Okay.
Well, they sought a peaceful negotiation.
Right.
Because unlike a lot of people who tell these myths don't understand, is that the tribes were ridiculously civilized back then. Chief Cornstalk and his sons went to Point Pleasant to meet with settlers to discuss a diplomatic solution to ending their conflicts. While he was there, he was under arrest and everything. And about 3 days into the process, soldiers burst into the room that he and his sons were being housed in and shot them at point blank range and killed them.
What? People fuck.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Yeah, like, that. It's really just, nope. It's just Western expansion was freaking horrible. So, but this is where a legend was born of a, say it with me now, Native American curse.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
There it is.
This is something that is tied to the bridge disaster and everything. But
Well, it kind of sounds like... Oh, no. I'm not going to say that.
there is no validity to the statement that Cornstalk levied a curse against anybody upon dying. His final words were probably something to the tune of, "You bastards, why did you shoot me?"
Yeah.
You have everything ripe for a bonkers cryptid to be suddenly popular, but also the possibility of an actual giant bird species in an area. Okay? And then you have a horrible disaster that transpired with the Silver Bridge. The Silver Bridge was a newer bridge that was built around this area. There was an older bridge that still stands, as a matter of fact, because it was built appropriately.
Wow.
It was a New Deal bridge that was built, and it was not built well. It was not built to... This was before a lot of zoning codes were properly enacted in more rural areas. But this bridge connected two sides of the right across the Ohio River. It connected Point Pleasant over to Ohio.
Which is a pretty large river.
It is.
there.
The Ohio River is actually a very large river. And this bridge absolutely could not support the amount of traffic that was going across it. It just could not. And through just basic storm problems and everything else like that, the bridge was reported from survivors. It was reported to suddenly heave, twist in the wind, and then just collapsed.
That is
and
not.
sadly claimed 47 lives. Now, up until this time, right up to this moment, Mothman sightings were literally every single day. It was becoming a thing. It was literally just a thing. If you lived in Point Pleasant or were around the Ohio River Valley, everybody had a story about the Mothman or giant birds or anything like that. Everybody had one. And then everybody had a quick snap back to reality when 47 people died tragically all at once. And the most horrible situation of that being the people who came to the sides to see the bridge to try to help people out, the worst one was seeing Christmas presents floating down the river because people were largely returning from Christmas shopping and all kinds of things. It was really bad. The bridge disaster, it's taken very seriously. It is something that should be, this is the disclaimer part, it should be taken very seriously. A lot of people died due to just really poor civil engineering.
Yeah.
And that's when people like Gray Barker and John Keel
We're like, oh, he was a harbinger of the disaster.
Mostly, there's not, when you go back to the actual sightings of the Mothman, you don't actually find from any of the original sources anyone who actually claims that the Mothman had anything to do with the bridge disaster.
Well, and we also don't see him predicting anything else up to that point, right?
You don't see him communicating.
Well, yeah, I
with
mean, that's
anyone.
what I'm saying. So, like, I don't know.
Now-
Did he just know that he needed to hang out there for a year? to
Maybe.
But if it were a harbinger of this disaster, then you'd think he would try to communicate.
The problem is
some way.
Some of the last reported sightings of the Mothman do involve the bridge. Nobody has a sighting from the day of the disaster, but a couple people have a sighting of it crawling underneath the bridge.
Really?
Yeah, crawling under the bridge.
Oof.
There's not a lot of information in detail like the first original sightings, like the Scarberry's report and everything.
Right.
But there are several people who confirmed that they believe they saw it or something crawling underneath the bridge.
That is creepy.
Yeah. Now then, from this point, gonna diverge slightly here, just a little bit. Remember earlier I talked to you about a UFO sighting in West Virginia in 1954?
Right.
Well, that is part and parcel to something I prefer to think of myself. We're getting to the theorizing time now.
Okay.
Now it's time to get really crazy and fun.
Theories.
Because this is the fun part of cryptids, is after you've gone, like, that's a big damn bird, it's time to go, but what if it wasn't?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Because like I said, there's a couple of things that are really strange in this. Again, just like with the skinwalkers, the crazier details that are more visible, that everybody identifies with, that's the Mothman, that's not the stuff you should look at. You should look at the weird stuff, like how in the hell were the electronic sounds and the radio interference happening? Mm-hmm. Why was it at the TNT plant specifically?
Well, and the TNT plant was vacant at the time, right? So, like, anyone could be living in there.
Some kind of...
Most creatures that would live there would die shortly thereafter, though. I like to think that those three legends are all interconnected as a similar creature because it is such a short period of time between all of them and a major event. When you look into cryptid and paranormal situations, there's sightings of an individual creature, and then there's a major event.
Yeah.
4 to 5 states witnessing the same unidentified flying object occurrence of multiple UFOs at the same time, that's a major event. Mm-hmm. And then weird crap starts happening afterwards. Yeah. Same as when you find certain sea cryptids after massive volcanic activity or a tsunami, like the weird one in Japan and everything. Right. Those things, you look at a major event, you'll start finding cryptid sightings. You'll start finding strange things like that. So the Mothman, there are still chapters upon chapters upon chapters of information pertaining to the Mothman. It is literally one of the most popular cryptids in Western civilization, and the Eastern civilization is starting to love him too.
Yeah.
Because when you draw him adorably, like he is on your coffee cup, it's hard not to love him.
He is pretty cute.
But the Mothman is one of those ones that, just like I mentioned before with the Skinwalkers, why it's so captivating is that it has evolved, its myth has evolved into the inexplicable. Mm-hmm. The parts about the Mothman that make it more interesting are the weird parts that very logically seem to be made up after the fact. But it creates a much more interesting creature than just, I witnessed a giant owl.
Right. Yeah. Do we think...
Hit me, people. What you got?
Could have been the Mothman.
Well, when you were talking about the Birdman being distinct from the so-called Mothman, bear with me.
It's okay. It's hard on these, okay?
So the pupa, the Mothman pupa came from space. Possibly, and this is
the Braxton Monster.
Yes, possibly trying to escape something like I was referring to earlier. It's a natural predator, which is also from space.
Could be the Birdman.
Could be the Birdman. Why else would they be spotted in the same area? And why are some people reporting it to be looking different? One had a long neck, one had blue feathers, and it looked like a crane or something. Maybe it's here to take care of its problem that escaped from space.
Possibly. There's also the possibility of it as an accidental landing.
There's my fun theory.
And our planet is secretly ruled by giant flying snake people. So that's a fun one to talk about later.
Maybe that's why,
I'm the kind of guy.
Is it too far-fetched?
Well, no. I'm the kind of guy that wants to believe these things are real, but when I look into everything that's laid out, it just, the Mothman in particular seems a little difficult to get behind. I think that as Simon laid out, there was history and this sort of this mythos that was already sort of laying out. I think that people out and about late at night trying to cause mischief probably are at some sort of sense of heightened alert, and that it could have been a misidentification, and that when a story goes from one hand to the next, it can grow and get bigger. And then if you get the media into it, and it's a small town, and not saying this is the case, but if there is an opportunity to capitalize on something like this, and I don't know if that would be a thing in this scenario, but there's a lot of money to be made, and but it is such a fascinating story, and the imagery is so captivating and interesting, and the other thing too, a lot of we see all these commonalities between these cryptids, like the terrible odor, the sulfurous, sort of odor. Like there's all this through like the history of these stories that I really find really interesting and captivating. I wish I'd been there to see it so that I could actually make a judgment.
Right.
But it's just such an interesting story, and also the fact that there's that rich history in West Virginia, I think is really kind of cool, and I'd love to go up there and actually visit.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why that's the approach that I try to take for these things too, is that you have to absolutely cut out all the stuff that's like, no, this is humans being dumb.
Yeah.
This is people being weird. Mm-hmm. That's why I mentioned witch hunting and everything.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think
everybody jumped on a bandwagon at a specific moment.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at, because I feel like that first incident, something absolutely happened.
Exactly.
What? I don't know.
There are several more that I could not talk about because, like I said, there's so many to talk about. Right. But there are several more that seem, some of which, so many of these sightings wind up being like, wait a minute, that's someone with sleep paralysis.
Yeah. Yeah, and, which is
another thing to link to sightings of doombringers and portents of other things because of the typical shadow men sighting during sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
Yet again, black shadowy figure, red glowing eyes, empty features.
Do we think that Mothman was the harbinger of
the bridge disaster?
No.
Not at all.
If he is a harbinger at all, why just that area, and why not for things like 9/11 or the Titanic?
No! Don't ask that question. You will find an answer that you don't want.
Hole?
Yes, that is that you are right on the edge of that rabbit hole and about to walk in. Don't do that.
That's how people fall in.
There are Mothman sightings, quote unquote, at 9/11.
Really?
What?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay.
This is keeping my eyes peeled. Then
notice I said quote unquote.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Listen, because also it doesn't help when that movie came out.
Well, yeah.
Came out in 2002.
Oh, right.
Oh,
yeah.
There you go.
Right. There we go.
That's one of the main reasons why the Mothman popularity exploded again. There was there was a recent horrible disaster.
Yes, and people need to cling on to if we can prevent something like that happening in some way.
Humans need an explanation.
Yes, it makes things easier for our brains to comprehend when things happen for seemingly no reason.
Exactly. It seems it's much easier to comprehend. It's much easier to comprehend an outlandish conspiracy and a bonkers monster than it is to take the time to just stop and think, no, it was that easy.
If we don't really know if this Mothman is the harbinger, but we also know that other than those in memoriam, 2 dogs. Other than that, we don't have any claims of it ever harming a human.
We have some claims of people saying
being chased, but not actually being harmed.
Some people stating that the claims of people who claim to have been physically in contact with it are the ones that seem like
Yeah.
Oh,
they're the ones that don't seem legit.
So my big question for Jason is Mothman on the naughty list or the nice list?
The Mothman is most definitely on the naughty list.
Oh no!
As well as anyone who has capitalized on his back.
No.
I'm kidding. No, it's such an interesting. I just think these stories are so cool and interesting because, you know, like I'm a storyteller, as you know, and I love the interaction between the myth and the mind, and how those things grow, and translate across like the populace. It's just such an interesting thing. It's kind of like telephone. You know, when you play telephone as a kid, sometimes there is a kernel of truth. I also have no doubt probably something very distressing happened that night to those 4 people.
Yeah.
And then it kind of grows out of that, and then, you know, as you give it over to, you know, the media or people that are trying to create some sort of engaging story that will sell newspapers or whatever, you know, unfortunately sometimes facts are laid to waste and it can become bigger than you think. But the Mothman is on. I'm going to talk to Santa tonight, and I'm certain he'll say definitely on the naughty list, although the people of Point Pleasant are on the nice list, so go see them. And
they actually are listed as being one of the friendlier towns in West Virginia.
I can imagine. I think
nice
that's
and quaint.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But yeah,
that's great.
This is the Mothman. Is like, as soon as you said you wanted to talk about the Mothman, I was both overjoyed and also immediately overwhelmed. It's like I've been reading about the Mothman myself since that movie, because my first introduction to the mythos itself was that movie.
Mine as well.
No idea that was based on a real thing. I was like, there's no way.
Then I came to find out that movie is not good in comparison to the real story.
Well, no. I mean, when you compare it to, that's... but it's entertaining.
The Mothman is one of the more interesting, especially on this side of the pond, it's one of the more interesting American cryptids and legendary creatures in this case.
Yeah. Well, thank you for telling us about the Mothman. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me
Thank you
rant
so
and
much.
rave like a lunatic again. So,
and thank you, Jason, for being with us.
It's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you, yeah.
Yeah, thank y'all so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Now, because we're coming up on Christmas, of course, I have to ask, is Santa a cryptid?
Santa's not. Krampus is.
Krampus!
Now, you see,
Yes.
I would actually... Now, hold on there. I actually have a slightly differing opinion on that one. Because I personally...
But vice versa?
I fall in the camp that they're the same creature.
Oh,
interesting.
Okay, that is interesting.
Santa and Krampus resemble very similarly the old Slavic myth of the white and black prince. At certain times during the year, they're a benevolent deity. At other times in the year, they're a dark deity. It's a duality myth, basically, a creation-destruction myth. But I find the idea of Santa and Krampus in this case being similarly linked. They cannot exist without each other.
Yeah.
While there must be celebration and reward for those who lead a positive life, there must be equal punishment and strange grumpiness applied to people who are not.
Is there...
See, that's too smart for my show. My show is just a laugh.
I was about to ask you if there was any way you were ever going to incorporate Krampus in your show.
Well, so he shows up in the first episode of the new season that just dropped last week.
Nice.
There is a Krampus storyline this season, but I'm taking it in a bananas direction. Also, I've got a spin-off that I want to incorporate.
That's amazing.
Where I want it's not just one Krampus; it's a family of Krampuses.
Oh, I love it. I mean,
yeah, and one of them is hosting a late night talk show. A la,
I don't know how your mind works, but I love it.
I know. It's a laugh. But anyhow, it's a blast. So
well, we're here for it.
I hope y'all enjoyed it. It's so much fun, and I appreciate. And if you will all do voices for the show, I'll
Absolutely.
have stuff.
Sure.
I've got a lot of my mic. Sorry. I've got a lot of different kind of things going on, and I've got some spinoffs. I've got an Elf Mafia series that I'm working on. I've got the Tooth Fairy investigation, which is going to be more like a Narcos sort of themed thing.
Love
the main
that.
show is more like Dateline, true crime.
Oh my gosh.
That's amazing.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
Leave my kids'
yeah.
teeth alone, damn it.
yeah, it's a blast, and everybody's been so sweet and awesome about it.
that.
Everybody that's on the show gets on the permanent nice list. So,
We are
book your
into it.
spots.
Yeah, and Simon's actually one of our voiceovers. He can do like pretty much any kind of voice. Like, I mean, you name it. You just name it, and he can do it. I can do like 2 or 3 different kinds, but
I do have mental issues that allow me to alter my voice. Yes.
but yeah, we're in.
Well, I really appreciate y'all so much for having me on, and this
Thanks
has been
for being
fun,
on.
and,
Thanks, man. Yeah.
We'll have to have you again sometime.
please, that'd be a delight.
You should absolutely sit in under one of the non-insane ones too, under Raven's actual
One of the
podcast.
actual true crime ones.
One
yeah.
of the legit ones.
That's
instead
a
of-
whole different
instead
mood.
of Simon's aluminum hat ramblings.
Well, we wanted to incorporate you because, we're so close to Christmas, and this is our kind of our Christmas special. So, yeah.
I'm gonna go
It
listen
was-
to your
it was
podcast
great.
now because this sounds too funny.
Sounds-
I
Thank
keep
you.
telling you it's
I've
amazing.
gotta listen. I gotta listen.
I will
to this.
say, like I was finding my way early on. I'm happy with the series. Early on, I was kind of finding myself, and I feel like it has gotten increasingly better. And we just had our best week last week on downloads, and now I just checked a little while ago, and I'm at 80% of that after 3 days. So. It feels like we've got some good momentum now, but yeah, no, it's a laugh, and I incorporate a lot of true crime podcasters, and
I love that.
and yeah, and it's all about just shining a light on other creators as well, and also nonprofits that benefit the space, and there is season 1 is very kind of like. My main character is very naive and very hopeful. Season 2 takes a little darker turn. And then season 3, we're going to return a little bit back for hope. So there is going to be at least three seasons. I'm on season 2 now. Episode 2 just dropped on Saturday. And I'm planning for 12 to happen, and my phone's ringing. I don't know where it is. So, but thank y'all for having me.
Yeah, thank
Thanks
you so
for being
much.
here, man.
Yeah,
we
man.
appreciate you.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to this special supernatural episode, Cryptids Unscripted. Catch more next time on the Sirens Podcast.
Do we have an outro? That's our outro, isn't it?